Oh, you know what? I didn't hit recording on Audacity. Yes, I did. Welcome to Keith and the Girl. I'm Keith Malley.
And I'm J-L Cauvin.
JL, how you doing? It's been way too long. Good to see you.
It has good to see you. It has been too long. And yet, like so many things in comedy, it's always one of those. What has it been? 3 years? It's like it's been 10.
Yeah, yeah. It's been too long. Somehow it got lost in the mix, but I'm glad you can make it. Let's just catch up everybody on things I know. The great JL, great comedian, fantastic impressionist. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to some of those. 6 feet 7 inches tall. And anytime I think about it, I feel for you so much. I'm going to be flying to Charlotte right after this show. I'm 6'2". It's going to be torture. I'm going to hit my
Mhm.
head on 17 things. I'll have to rearrange my legs every 8 seconds. Um, do you fly?
I used to fly a lot, and I would just have to get the sort of Delta Comfort Plus sort of seating,
Okay.
which is like first class room for the normal person. And for me, it was like, oh, good, just enough room where I'm not wedged in. And but after the pandemic, and I'm sure I'll fly again, but after that kind of long break, I hate flying.
Right.
And it was one of those things where after if you do it 2 or 3 times a month, you're like, whatever, it's I'm used to it. I can get over it. Your nerves kind of calm from just exposure therapy, basically. But after not flying for like 3 years, it's now been 6 years since I've flown.
Okay.
Because it
Do
was
you
like this long enough break where I was like, it's gonna take that inertia to move me back
yes.
onto a plane.
Do you remember first of all, I remember you mentioning when you were born you were over 10 pounds, right?
Yes,
Your
good
mom got
memory.
a C-section up to her neck, I assume.
Yes.
When you go to the airport, do you walk up and ask for an exit row and do you get it automatically like they see your disease?
It used to be like Southwest was very nice about this before they realized they could monetize everything.
Right.
They would just give me, a nice person at the desk would be like, oh boy, you're tall. Here, just take this blue pass and you can go on like right after, with the handicapped and the people with children and the veterans or whoever gets to
Right.
go on first, you too. And so I could get the exit row seat. And then they realized, oh, you know what? People want that seat. So I'm sorry. You're now the last person in boarding group C. Enjoy sitting in the middle seat, next
Right.
to the bulkhead or something. So they used to, but now it's everything, like everything is monetizable now. So there's no advantage, no courtesy available. It's not even the worker's fault.
It is weird. I debate about paying extra for an exit row sometimes. And it's funny that if I pay money, I'm responsible for the whole plane. If I don't pay money,
Right.
I'm not I'm not able to save lives.
Yeah, that's weird. It feels like, and they should have like an extra tier, which is okay, do you want the room but not responsibility? That's a
Right.
platinum tier. So for an additional $30, you have leg room and can let people die.
Do you live in Jersey, right?
Yes.
Um, I assume you're in New York a lot, doing stand up. You're in bars and clubs and this kind of thing. When it gets late at night, do strangers want to fight you? Do they see a 6, 7 thing and want to make a big deal out of it, even if it's just to be funny to their girlfriend or friend?
No, I feel like I'm pretty fortunate. I think I look just angry enough
Okay.
that it's just, but then I'm the type of person who realizes very quickly, oh, if this person wants to fight me, I definitely don't want to fight them because
Hmm.
there's something counterintuitive. They're either crazy or, filming a video for some sort of underground MMA channel.
Right.
Either way, I don't want to be like, little MMA guy takes out giant guy going home from work.
Right.
Like, viral video. So I think it's my deterrent. I'm not a man with real fighting skills or anything. I just have, as Dr. Evil would say, I'm just ill-tempered.
Okay.
But yeah, nobody picks fights, and I'm 45 now, and not that I was ever a fighter, but I really just don't have the mojo anymore to be like, you want to go. I'm like, I want to go home is what I want to. I don't want to go anywhere but home to watch a show and eat a cookie.
You did play, which by the way, your dog's name is Cookie, right?
My dog's name is Cookie, and I'm
And your
half
dad's
Haitian, so
Haitian. Oh boy.
people are reading between the lines, like the
Oh
clues.
boy.
It's very usual suspects. At the end of the movie, they realize the half Haitian was eating dogs the whole time.
The new stand-up album is called Half-Blackface, and it's very good. Um,
Thank you.
your dad's Haitian, your mom's was Irish is Irish.
Right.
They're both still around.
My dad passed away in 2017. He was 85. It was a good run. He
Okay.
had me. He was 47 when I was born. So, pretty cool to get him for 37 years after such a late start.
Right. Well, you know
um,
what? You say that late start. In your album, you mention how, people will say, "Oh, I'm a child of divorce." Like, I fucking wish. I remember in school somebody said they're a latchkey kid, and I'm like, I thought it was a disease. I heard it just meant you go home alone and you're the only one there. I'm like, oh, okay, that's horrible. And you say like, I forget how you word it, but being at home was like watching it and reading an unfinished Tarantino script, and the only
right.
time they got together was when they agreed on punishing me for some. Was it mixed feel? Did you guys make peace? Was it mixed feelings when he died?
Oh, no, no, no. It was there was never I feel like they had a very contentious marriage, but I didn't feel like um there was no real ill will towards us, or there was no, yeah,
Okay,
they hit. They were, as I joke, I say, when your dad is born in 1931 Haiti and your mom is a, pre-baby boomer working class Irish American woman, it's not a home full of time out in terms of discipline.
right,
But you just, I mean, I don't know. I was, like, when he passed, I was sad, and it was one of those things as you get older, I think, not to be too much of a downer, but you start to realize, especially in a career like comedy where there's a lot of isolation, you end up existing more online than in real life to a certain extent in terms of your
right.
social relationships. Um, you sort of realize, oh wow, that's one of the few people on earth who loved me. And I don't mean that in a, oh, nobody loves me. I just mean when you really get down to it, a few close friends, family, if you're lucky, love you and care about you more than just funny show or good to see you. Or so when you lose somebody like that, that was it's more like one of those, if there are any regrets, you sort of wish you could obviously express that kind of a feeling, but it's often when somebody's gone that you sort of can only then fully feel the loss.
I feel that now that I'm older. I wish my dad was a different person so we could have worked things out. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Do you learning impressions? Is it as
Mhm.
deep as maybe you were trying to hide something or be somebody else, or you just found you were good at it?
I will tell you I think I was good at it. And I sometimes wonder if growing up in a house, like I lived in New York. So you have a host of characters and accents that way. But I also lived with a man who was, born in a foreign country and had his own accent.
Right,
And I sometimes wonder if that just made me, because most people for most of my life did not know that I was from New York from here. They expected me to have some sort of thick New York accent. And I think I was probably sampling so much that there was no one dialect or neighborhood speech pattern to sort of adopt. So that may have helped me.
right.
But as far as comedy in general I was a violent little kid, and like getting into fights and being very aggressive as a child. And then my
Why
school, my
was that, by
private,
the way? What, how did that start? Because you were the big kid?
no, I think honestly, I think any basic therapist will tell you, when kids are hit at home, they often lash out outside of the
Yeah,
home.
yeah,
And so I think I think that was probably the main reason. And my private school said he's a very good student, but if he keeps hitting kids, he will have to leave. And to my
hmm,
mom, who, only had a high school education and is sort of a Goodwill Hunting type, where it's like I just read, 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 read. Education was, even though she wasn't an immigrant, she had that sort of classic education is the key to unlocking everything mindset. And so the idea of me being kicked out of private school that she worked hard to get me in, I think was she was willing to do whatever it took. So even though she wasn't a big fan of the idea of her kid going to a child
right.
psychologist, I went for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden I emerged from that. I think as the brain is developing, you're not quite cognizant of like, hey, we really worked through some of the violence and
Sure.
now I'm going to do other things besides being violent. But all of a sudden, to me, it was like all of a sudden, a couple of years later, I'm just making jokes and doing impressions. And I don't think you have to, the line is very clear. It's like, I can no longer hurt people with hands. I will hurt them with words now. That's called
Right.
improvement.
Did you ever confront either of your parents and go, why do you think I was fighting in school? Duh.
No, and that is actually on one of my albums, Too Big to Fail. I have a joke about having an old dad where I go, and then when you finally get big enough and strong enough and to confront them with your anger and your hostility, you go, well, I can't pick on this old man.
Right. That's how they get you. You know,
It's a great life hack. Have kids late so when they're finally bigger than you, they feel sorry for you.
I'd hear people mention how they were 16, 17, and they stood up to their abusive dad, and then it got into a fist fight. We've all heard these stories. I didn't know that was possible, and now it's just way too late.
Yeah, exactly.
Ugh, I was
And I was
tricked.
afraid that if I got into a fight with my dad, people would think I was a racist Italian.
I see, right, right. Um, the being would did they know in school you were half black? Was that a thing?
Yeah, I think not everybody, but obviously, a smaller private school, parents see other parents. There's enough functions and things. I think I fit into more of I wasn't an Obama where you're like, oh, you're just light-skinned black, but it was more of a you're an other. They may not have
Right.
known, oh, yes, you're clearly half black, but it was more like you're half person of color, to use a modern term.
When you have people, I mean, you have a presidential candidate, Donald Trump, saying Kamala Harris, is she black? Now she's claiming she's black. How frustrating must that be? Is it like
Well,
motherfucker? It's 2024, and what?
yeah, well, I can imagine, to be fair to Kamala Harris, if it were me running for president, I could at least, I'm not going to deny that there could be some confusion about what I'm claiming. And I'd be like, that's why, in all seriousness, I know some people don't like this, but they haven't walked in my shoes. That's why I always say I'm biracial. I don't like it when somebody calls me white, but I also have had enough skepticism that I'm not going to pretend like when somebody says, you're a black man, that I don't go, under the 1890s or 1950s, absolutely. But in the modern day, I feel like I am treated and like a biracial person. So it's not really a denial. But if I looked blacker, I would probably have been treated my whole life more like, oh, I didn't realize you were half white versus I didn't realize you were half black. So it's sort of easier psychologically and maybe a little more honest given my facial features to just say I'm biracial. Because even that gets some skepticism from people. With Kamala Harris, it's more like she fits, I think, into the other category, which is like you look black mixed with something, and you have identified your whole life. You have culturally identified with and embraced and been included in very black spaces by choice and by look. So it's a,
And not
I think
included in other spaces. Not
right,
included.
right. And I think for Trump, I think to sort of say that is like a sort of convenient denial of who we are as a country, where blackness has always been the sort of dominant identifier. If you have any black in you, for many often for negative reasons, I think Trump sees now the kind of cultural and political positivity in some way of being a historic candidate for black women, and that there is a segment of a small segment of black people who look at her, a small but loud segment, who kind of don't view her as authentically black for whatever warped reason they view it. And I think he thinks that this is an election on the margins. If I can exploit some bias or dissatisfaction among maybe black men or some black women to suppress a little bit of enthusiasm for her, maybe that's enough, to win a close state.
I
I,
also
I
not to
think
be not to be funny. I think the word thinking is a big word, but okay.
he thinks the way my dog thinks about getting a piece of steak that's on the counter. It's like she
Hmm.
will find a way to get up on a chair and then walk on the counter. It's not necessarily thinking, but it's instinct driving you
Yes.
to the near point of thinking.
Right. I picture Rally's over and he's like, what did I say?
Right. He just enters sort of a state where it's like, I blanked out there. What did I say? Build a wall, get the blacks, shoot them. Is that what I said? I just sort of, I'm in the zone. They call it the Trump zone, which is sort of like a combination of LSD and a Klan rally. It's called the Trump zone, and we're selling it for $99. And you get a free NFT of me going crazy with an AR-15 if you order now. Thank you.
Is it how much do you I mean you must follow this is first of all is it frustrating to have what do you have seven regular stand-up albums and then you also
8.
do eight albums and you have two Trump albums and it seems to be the Trump stuff is what is catching online when you've been a comedian for almost 2 decades. Is it frustrating? Hey, whatever takes, but at the same time, what the fuck, people?
Well, I think I think I have always done a lot of different things. For the first half of my career, when I'm just quote unquote finding my voice and everything, I was completely focused just on stand up. And it was sort of nice to be able to, hey, I just want to be good at stand up. So that's all my effort was going into that. And then you accept the reality of, well, maybe it's time to do a podcast to maybe a hook. And part of my motivation for doing a podcast, not to give you too long an answer, but
Please.
was, hey, if I'm not getting back to a club for 18 months, at least this might keep people engaged because I've
Right.
had people who followed me for 2 years and I don't go back to that club for 3 years and they unfollow, not because they hate me or anything, but they're just like, I mean, he was funny, but like he's not doing anything or he doesn't come around that often. So I thought keeping people engaged with funny stuff, to fill in those sometimes very large gaps. But when the Trump thing happened, I'd been doing the Trump podcast for a couple of years. I was sort of dismayed at how it hadn't caught fire, how I thought I was really putting out kind of very
Right.
original Trump era comedy.
It's
And
called, for
then
the
during the
record, make
yep,
podcasts great again, right?
making podcasts great again. Yeah.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden thank you. I'm so good at
Sure.
promoting myself.
I hear you.
I
I
got a
hear
thing. If you look up whoever,
you.
whatever, I gotta go. But then the videos caught on during the pandemic in a very, very big way, like bigger than anything I'd ever done by a factor of 10. And I'd been on like late night and stuff like
Mhm.
that, but this was, the perfect storm. And I said, great. I'm glad I've been doing all these different things because now I have a body of work to appeal to a broad audience. Like, hey, if you like stand up, I got plenty of that. If you like political commentary, I got stuff on that. If you like sketches that aren't Trump, I've got plenty of that. And that's where the frustration kind of crept in a little bit because whether it was bad luck or the nature of the pandemic, I feel like my comedy to a lot of people was sort of this balm during a crisis, which is great because that drove a lot of traffic and a lot of attention to me. So I'm grateful for that for sure. But I think I was disappointed in sort of my inability to convert those people who love my comedy into being fans of my broader comedy. And not to compare my Trump material to Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad, but Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad, that will be the career highlight. And there's
Right.
no shame. I mean, it's one of the great shows, one of the great performances. That will be the first line in his obituary, even if he continues making shows and movies for another 25 years. But people didn't stop watching anything else. Like you become interested because you're like, oh, well, he
Right.
did great work there. Let me see what other good work or great work he's doing. And I feel like for me, it's been a struggle to be like, hey, it's not just the voice you like. I do a lot of funny things, and that sense of humor is employed in a lot of different things. And I've been doing Trump for 6 years. I've been doing stand up for 20. So maybe if you like that, there's a so I think that's been the frustrating thing. I'm very grateful for whatever we do a lot of different things because you
Well,
want
for
one thing to
example,
stick.
right. For example, Dan Wilber was on our show recently. He does a JD
Yeah.
Vance, and it's just hilarious because he says rambly dumb things. It's not
And
necessarily
for just one thing
yeah.
for our New York listeners, he will be joining me as JD Vance as for
It's
our
great.
live making podcast in October 11th in New York City.
But yeah, he feels this way. Like, okay, good. This is what's catching on. But do I got to do a new album and just have JD Vance tell my regular jokes?
Right. And I think what I would advise him, I feel like I could almost do a support group for like, did you
Hmm.
blow up with one thing and you want to,
Right.
I think it's not all my fault. It's not all going to be Dan's fault, But the algorithms are the sort of unspoken thing here where, like on TikTok, fortunately, I've done some impression videos and a couple stand-up videos that randomly got 100,000 views or something. But the most consistent success I have by far is a Trump video. So you get into this bind where you go, well, I want to showcase that I'm not just Trump. And when people see the stuff, they like it. But the algorithm kind of labels you, well,
Right.
you're Trump guy. So when you say, hey, check out this impression or this stand-up, it can blow up, but it almost never does because it's sort of branded you like your fans like Trump. So we will promote you and show you to more of your own fans. And that's the thing that's confusing me is like, if they've already decided to follow me, why do you
Yeah.
still curate the feed to be as if they don't follow me? Because
Right.
I get a new person seeing me for only the things that I'm most popular. That makes sense. But when somebody follows me on Twitter, YouTube, or TikTok, well, shouldn't they be elevated into a new group that's like, I'm a fan of this person's work, so don't be shy about showing me more of their overall stuff. But they keep you in that algorithm box. So to Dan, I would tell him, we can be artists, but the reality of it is feed the hell out of the JD Vance, and then hope you can pivot.
Do
Um,
you ever find yourself dreaming that you're Trump or this kind of thing?
no, but I really have spent since 2018. I have spent, I don't know how many thousands of hours speaking and thinking like him. Because, an hourly podcast every week for six
Right.
years, plus hundreds of videos, plus live shows, plus some media appearance. It's a lot.
I
My
I
girlfriend hates, like, I think she hates the sound of my Trump more than actual Trump because she's
right.
just had to endure so much of it.
Does do things come out accidentally? I was remembering this thing just the other day. It's stupid, but this girl I was dating, she didn't like when I did this, but I thought it was the funniest fucking thing. She'd ask me a question, and as I'm legit thinking, I go, and then I'd come up with the answer. Let me think. The TV show's at 9 o'clock. Next thing you know, I'm at the grocery store with her, and they go credit or debit, and I go, I'm like, oh shit, that was real. Does the thing stick out where you're like, oh shit, man, this is a brain worm?
um, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I've managed. It's very funny how quickly I can turn it on now, but I think I've kept it pretty separate.
I think you're pretty clear with your politics in that I could put money on who you're voting for. When you're Trump, your hat says make prisons great again. Um, do you get feedback from people that they don't seem to get the joke?
Well, what's funny is there are some MAGA fans of making podcasts great again, which in a weird way I can respect because it's the people who I don't respect voting for Trump, but I can respect somebody who at least sees Trump for what he is. Like he is a big character. He is crude. He is rude. And that's some of what appeals to people. But it's when they act like that's off limits because he's such a great president in their mind. I'm like,
Right.
but you like him because he's a brash character. You can't deny that that's not part of the appeal. And that's also part of the most parodiable thing about him. That's not a
Right.
word, but you know what I mean.
I
I
follow. Yeah.
think, but pushback that I often get, at times people will try to call me like some one trick pony. And I'm like, I guess if you never look for anything else I do, I will appear to be a one trick pony. And I have to also just, just kind of accept that, even though I'm not, that will be how some people perceive me. But I think left wing people are the funniest to me because some of them, because they will love whatever crude thing I say as Trump. It can be as crude. I can make jokes about him and Jeff Epstein,
Right.
having sleepovers with children. And they're like, oh man, you got him. And then the minute I make something that's like just a little bit the other way, not even nearly as crude,
Right.
they're like, whoa, whoa, too much. And so that's a little bit of the pushback. But the Trump stuff, it's kind of accepted now of, sometimes you have a right wing person who's like, your impression is terrible. And I'll go, yeah, me and like millions beg to differ, but
Right.
okay. So it's fine.
It's
I
so
think,
terrible. That's
so,
how it found you.
right. And it's, just like somebody who'll, it's a very weird thing we've come up with in comedy where I know not everything that's popular is good,
Right.
but it's very weird to be like, I remember some woman, I was taping my set in Long Island at a pretty MAGA club, but I was crushing. I used my technique of I get up there and I go, I voted for Joe Biden. Anybody else? And we get it out of the way and they boo
Right.
me and they say, no, you suck. And I go, wait, I thought that was my side who does the shut up. I don't like who you
Right.
voted
Right.
for, but I guess it's you guys. And then they go, hey, that's right. We don't want to be like them. He's got a good point. Let's laugh. But I was
Okay.
killing with this crowd, really killing. And but this woman who knew I had set up my camera next to her because she was friendly before, obviously she was a very hardcore MAGA person, and she just interrupted my tape with a
Oh,
note
damn.
card that said "You suck." And I was so mad after because I wish I had seen her do it.
Right.
But because, in a weird way, it's funny because I get home and I have this awful surprise interrupting my tape.
Is
But
it
at the
just
same time, she
is it for a second
it's
or
for
for a
like three
while?
seconds,
Okay.
just so I know that she thinks I suck. Or it was like her
Right.
phone, she typed it on her screen. But what was so odd about it, if I was bombing, I would have been like, well, just a horrible night. I was killing at the moment she just didn't like it, but
Right.
all her MAGA friends in the crowd, which was like 95% of the crowd was MAGA, not just like, well, we don't like Democrats. It was like, no, Trump's the best. They were laughing. So it's like this idea of people now get into their own head, like, I don't like this, therefore I'm going to define this as being terrible. It's a very
Right.
weird thing.
The speaking of the Kamala and being black or not, you see Janet Jackson, the great Janet Jackson, is
Yeah.
in the news now saying, "Hey, I heard she wasn't black." Now I know I'm sure she lives in this weird bubble of what the fuck, but what the fuck? So Janet
A
Jackson's
member of Michael Jackson's family questioning the racial credentials of somebody is a
right.
bold move.
Let's see here. Asked if in the Guardian. Are you excited? What do you think that Kamala will be the could be the first black president? She's not black, Janet said. That's what I heard. That she's Indian. That's what I heard. This is like Trump talking. That's what I heard. People are
Right.
saying. His
There's a lot of
father's
people saying, there's people saying that she's Indian and also white and that nobody's black. And then she turned black. And the way he said that during that, like he was almost vomiting it out. He was like, no, she's black.
Let's see. Jackson responded, she's not black. That's what I heard, that she's Indian. Her father's white. That's what I was told. If you have to keep going to what I heard and what I was told, you don't got to say it. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
it's
Like you're trying to
it's
distance yourself from it, but at the same time, you do need to say it. It's so important.
it's very odd for somebody like because Janet Jackson, obviously she's still a global superstar, et cetera. Like I'm not going to
Right.
call she's not a has been or something like that. But at the same time, ma'am, you've got to be close to 60,
Sure.
around 60. You're not touring nonstop. You're not in the studio all the time. Spend some of your like, what do you do? Do you just get worshipped all day in like a castle? Because
Yeah.
you do have more time to maybe watch the news or read or do other activities to keep your brain active. You're not some sort of I'm on tour 24/7 and I'm just in my own bubble because the grind is so difficult. You to be in
But I
to
don't have to
be
see the news to know I'm not going to say, I don't think this woman's even black. If you don't
right.
see the news, you wouldn't have this opinion, right?
Right. So you are consuming or surrounded by people who are very questionable.
Which is most
Um,
likely people are saying it's her brother Randy, who's very pro-Trump and runs her
oh, he
business.
is.
Yeah.
Wow, but that may like, but it's so weird to be like, you mean I'm the second most successful Jackson by a mile and a half, and
Yes.
yet I'm still being managed by basically a tax dependent.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I haven't watched the news in a few days. Okay. So maybe new information came out, in all fairness. I haven't watched the news in a few days. I was told that they discovered her father was white. Her parents, of course, immigrants from Jamaica and India. What the fuck? Quick, show
That's
a nipple. Quick.
But that's one of those things. Not that Janet Jackson is the average American. Obviously, she lives
Right.
in a sort of very unique world, but that's what's so disheartening. I mean, I did a thing on Instagram that I wouldn't say it went viral, but it's gotten a lot of attention from both people who like it and hate it that don't follow me or have
Hmm.
started following me. But I basically just list the basic facts about the two people who were shooters of Trump, or the guy who was like the shooter and the guy who
Yeah.
was going to be a shooter, and then just sort of Trump's legal cases. Just basic facts. These weren't like I've done the deep dive into, and the amount of comments from MAGA people, they're like, you're spreading nothing but lies. And I'm just like, which one? And I will say to them after I insult them, can you name the lie in this? Like, what is the lie? These are not, I didn't do like some
Right.
deep dive. These are the common facts about Trump. Like, are you saying he wasn't convicted of 34 felonies? Are you saying doesn't have to pay 80 plus $1 million because he sexually assaulted a woman in
Right.
a clothing store? Like, what are you telling me that is false? Because when somebody like Janet Jackson is like, I heard she's white, you're like, wow, there really are these bizarre bubbles where people can live. I get it if you're telling me certain things, like Fox News or Newsmax, they say certain things, very inflammatory things. But when you're telling me Kamala Harris's dad is white, or Trump is not like wasn't found guilty of
Right.
something, I'm going, whoa. These are things that even the people who hate the Democrats agree on. They can say it's wrong. They can say we don't like this, but they don't actually believe that these things didn't happen. So,
Christian Finnegan brought up this point, and I think it's a good point that social media is making people stubborn. Because
mhm,
even if you're just a regular civilian with a job that's not necessarily entertainment, you still wrote your opinion on social media. Now you have to back it up because you'll feel like you look like an idiot. So you say, hey,
right.
maybe there was something we're missing when he called Georgia and said, find me votes. There's probably more to it. Anyway, I got to stand my ground or you'll think I'm an idiot, total stranger.
Right. And I think the thing with Trump, that's unfortunate. There's many unfortunate things, but I feel like you to still believe in Trump after all he's done, after just his personality, his character, his presidency, his post presidency, the only way to stay enamored with a man like that is to be in sort of a cultish mindset. Because if you all of a sudden realize that no, actually Trump did all these things and he's not a good guy and he is selfish and he is racist and he did commit these crimes and he doesn't respect women and he said weird things about his daughter sexually, etc., you you'd have to then take some of the blame. You'd have to be like, oh, I'm complicit in this like nightmarish man having power. That's too much to bear, in
Right.
all honesty. I'm the one talking about all the kids we have to save and these bizarre fantasies about massive billion child sex
Hmm.
rings. Um, I'm part of the problem. So I can't be part of the problem because
Right.
that would devastate me in a way that I can't comprehend.
Do
So
people
I'm just going to keep doubling down.
because you do Trump, do people try to debate with you about things? And I can't stand devil's advocates. The devil's just fine. He doesn't need your fucking help. Hey, can I play devil's advocate for a second? No. How about you just
Right.
tell me your real thoughts and we can go
Right.
from there? But somebody will start. Well, Snopes said that he didn't see old people on all sides, and I'm just like, fuck off. Are you able to debate people?
Well, like bleach. The bleach one's funny because he said
Right.
disinfectant into their veins. And it's like,
Yes.
that's been debunked. Never said bleach.
Right.
Like they're very into winning on technicalities when it comes to their guy.
Right.
And then the most gross exaggerations and blowing up of microscopic things on the other side. But people, um, I think people obviously view me as a more political person, maybe because I've been so identified. I mean, I am, but because my comedy, even though my stand-up is 97% not political,
Right.
the things a lot of people know me for are more political in nature. But what I get really versus the devil's advocate is people kind of tell they know I'm not pro-Trump. So they try to come at me from the angle where they kind of go, I mean, both sides, right? Like both
Hmm.
sides just,
As
and I got no.
politicians.
Yeah, and I go, that's lazy, and that everybody hates, so many people hate politicians. But if you allow Trump, you actually elevate Trump if you group him in as they both stink. Am I right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, like they are, even if you think the Democrats are weak or ineffective or whatever you may think of them in terms of critically, that's for another day. That's for when the Republicans nominate somebody legitimate. And I would even say this, even Ron DeSantis, who tries to be Trump, that's a legitimate politician, a legitimate governor. That would be somebody who would lay out policies. Yes, he would maybe be not the greatest guy to listen to in terms of the way he delivers things or his aggressiveness or his tone, but that's a legitimate person and politician. Donald Trump doesn't deserve that cover. Like, he has to be
Hmm.
dealt with on his own as an issue before we can get back to politics as usual or both sides. He is an outlier so far gone. There is no left wing equivalent and not even close. So when people do that, I think they're usually right leaning who wants some kind of moral cover to be like,
Right.
but if I vote for him, it's only because both sides stink, right? And I'm like, no, like,
I didn't like, and I voted for Hillary Clinton at the time, but I didn't like that debate when it seemed like she was treating him like a human being compared to Kamala, who
yeah,
found that thin fucking line to, I think, not look like a total bitch or like somebody's mother, but you are treating this person like a child because they are not
yeah,
on your level. They shouldn't be taken seriously.
yeah, agreed. And I think it was, Hillary Clinton for so many things had to, she had to lose so that other people could learn
Right.
um, what was at stake and how to deal with him, which is Joe Biden told him to shut up during a
Right.
debate. That's not normal debate behavior,
Come on,
but it
man.
worked
Yeah.
because, yeah, oh, will you just shut up, man? But that's exactly how so many people felt.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden showed patience, but he didn't become a doormat. He had a breaking point
Right.
with him. And Kamala Harris was able to, I mean, it was simple and it was incredibly effective, which was just you are not. I think when she said it best when she said he is not a serious person, but the consequences of him will be very serious. That's
Yeah.
because you've diminished him without diminishing the threat.
Did when I I I I was reported on this the other day, but porn views, like Pornhub, this kind of thing, went down as much as 20% during the first hour of that debate. And I got to tell you, I was edging myself. It was very exciting. Um,
Well, because it was like seeing like I don't know interracial cuck or interracial
right,
S&M. It
right,
was like I want to see a black woman destroy a white CEO.
right. Oh, it's very exciting stuff. Um, oh, by the way, real quick, this Janet Jackson thing, the manager sent an apology out saying, no, she didn't mean to say that. And then
I saw
the
that today. Yeah.
agent said, no, that's not true. This person doesn't represent Janet Jackson. She
I
meant
I
it.
love
Like, what the
that. I
fuck?
love the doubling down on like, no, we don't apologize. We still don't think. Like he was trying to, it sounds like he was trying to help her. And this is one of those things where just like one of my favorite basketball players, John Stockton,
Hmm.
never spoke, never said anything about anything. He was definitely a shut up and dribble kind of player. But during COVID, the first time he ever got political or social was to be in documentaries claiming that the vaccine was killing thousands of athletes.
Mm,
It was insanity. And I thought, John, this is when you speak. You could have just continued to, there's lots of big things you've never spoken on.
right.
You could have continued that trend. And I feel like Janet Jackson, this is a weird thing where she's like, no, no, no. Normally, I don't get involved in stuff like this, but no, I will double down on Kamala Harris not being black. That
Right.
is too important for me to stay silent.
Yeah, this is what I was gonna say. During that debate when she started, I'm like, oh, you are a lawyer of some kind. You started with an opening statement. saying, here's what he's gonna do during this debate, and I'll give it away.
Right.
This idiot won't be able to help himself. He's not going to answer a fucking question. He's going to keep lying. Anything that stumps
Yeah,
him, he's going to make some bullshit about immigration and action. And of course, that's what Trump did. You're a former assistant DA, right?
I am.
Um, when you saw that, were you like, oh shit, this is DA shit that she's doing? This is good.
That's funny. I thought it was a good debate point. And I think other people would have been able to modify their strategy on the fly because it's like, oh, don't walk into her trap. You
Right.
can, and then you can point out how wrong she was because you're not supposed to, you're not really even allowed. You're like closing statements, especially. This was obviously an opening statement, but it's about if you make an opening statement and then you don't have that evidence, that will look bad for you because
Right.
then they can say they promised you this and that and they didn't deliver. It looks worse than if you had said nothing about it. So it's a little risky to say that about Trump, except they obviously strategized and were like, no, no, no. He will not be able to help himself. He is that
Right.
undisciplined. And I joked with somebody, I said, Kamala Harris had like a strategy for every question. It was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try this. Donald Trump's a bitch. Why can't we come together? And she'd like, and then he would just be stewing on number three every time. My
Right.
crowd size, dictators love me. They'll walk me like a dog or whatever she said. Like,
But
and he could halfway through the debate, it was over because he just, and then he spiraled out where I guess he thought, okay, I got this is my Hail Mary play. We're down in the fourth quarter. Haitians are eating pets.
right.
And to me, that's the scariest thing about this country right now is that I go, if you're a MAGA person, just don't go vote. Like to me, it's like, don't you don't you see, just like you could see that Joe Biden was too old to campaign, like even being generous, too old to campaign properly for the job. Even if he
Right.
could sit behind a desk and discuss things and come to decisions, he could not present the vision of leadership that we have as a country. That's sort of indisputable. I was going to vote for him happily, but he did not project the same vigor and the
Sure.
stamina that you do want from a leader in a high
Right.
pressure job. That's just a fact. Um, if you're a MAGA person, is really being loud and crazy enough for you to think that somebody has leadership skills and the ability to lead? Like somebody who can be baited that easily. And Hillary Clinton warned us that he could be baited, but she didn't demonstrate it.
Right.
Probably because she was still operating by the old debate rules, which is you act dignified and you lay out your plan. Kamala Harris accepted the reality as it is, which is no, I'm going to make him show what an ass he is. And she did, but it changed very few minds. It may have encouraged a few more people to be enthusiastic about her, but like if the roles were reversed and a Democrat had that unhinged a display,
Yes.
there would have been a 15-point swing. There just
Right.
would have been. Every independent who is not locked in as a Democrat would have gone, can't do it. Got to vote Trump or Kennedy or something. Like they just would have, there
Yeah.
would have been an exodus of like 10 to 15 percentage points.
What tricks is a lawyer or a DA allowed to do in court? Like in regards to a jury, can I say as the lawyer, hey, actually, I approve. I actually saw the murder. But red tape, I can't present that. Dismissed. Anyways, let's continue is that illegal?
That's definitely illegal.
That's illegal. Okay. All right.
My favorite trick is you can do either one, but my favorite thing we sort of learned is if somebody, let's say somebody you're saying, what did you do on like how do you have such perfect recall of that day? Or if somebody has a
Right.
perfect story, you go, oh, see, and how do you remember that? And if it's your witness, they'll be like, oh, well, that was my niece's birthday. So I remember it as a special day. I wouldn't have remembered it otherwise, but I knew it happened on that day.
Right.
Or if somebody's testimony is like not perfect, you go, but why would we put up somebody with an imperfect story unless that imperfection shows that it's a real memory or a real story? It's not rehearsed. It's
Right.
not rehearsed. Therefore, you can trust their inconsistent story because it's coming from a real place. You always have an angle to sort of spin. Oh, they seemed inconsistent, but that's because it really happened and it was traumatic. So that's why they don't have this perfect memory.
Right.
And if they have too perfect a memory, it's like, wow, you remember everything that day. It's almost like you've been coached, that kind of
Do you ever feel bad?
tone.
Like that was I kind of tricked people on that one.
No, I wasn't particular. The funny thing is, people think because I'm a good comedian, they're like, "Oh, you must have been great in court." And I was like, "No, court matters." So I felt a lot of pressure.
I see.
I would get cotton mouth and be like, "Okay, let me get extra water because what I'm doing right now actually matters for like people's lives and for my job."
Right.
Like comedy is like, I just say whatever I want. If they laugh, that's it. Job done. I don't have to. Nobody's life is hanging in the balance here. Not that I had cases that important in my 3.5 years, but sometimes I just felt like we went, not to get too serious. The
Please.
only regret I would have is sometimes on small cases where you might want somebody to say, well, who sold you this, or who did you get this from? We'll give you a lower case. We'll give you a lower sentence, or we'll
Hmm.
ask for drop a charge if you just tell us. And people would be like, no, either because they don't know or because they don't want to tell. But either way, you'd be like, okay, well, I guess you're now going to have a criminal record for this like rinky dink thing because we were hoping you'd leverage, into somebody more important, and you either wouldn't or couldn't. And either way, here you go. You got a misdemeanor or something. You got to tell people you've been convicted of a crime. It's things like that where I feel like, sometimes you're just like, a misdemeanor is no big deal in the grand scheme of like your freedom, but it's not nothing. You're still, you've been convicted of something.
Right.
It's still something.
The my girlfriend that's where I'm going to Charlotte. She's a genius. She passed the bar in 2 states. I
Nice.
believe the term second seat, but she was on one of these trials. She got
Yes.
then she's doing, the work for the main people that were trying the case, but because of her being so on top of things, she got an innocent guy off death row. Um,
Wow.
what do what do you think about this idea if you are what's called the second seat? You're not the main person. As the main person is talking to the jury or talking to a witness, the second seat just mutters shit like this fucking rapist son of a bitch. Sickest thing I've ever fucking seen. Is that a good move? Do people do that? You
I don't know that
deadbeat
they
piece
do.
of shit.
I second set a murder trial, and I remember just thinking, if this guy murdered somebody, I definitely don't want to be seen saying anything. I'll leave that to
Right.
I'll let the jury take the heat.
I see. Right.
Um, but yeah, that would be fun. Like if you sat there going, you mother, like
Gross. He just keeps looking at the jury. The second guy is like, fucking gross. I'm gonna vomit
you
this
write on a
story.
notepad in big enough letters that they can read, and you're like pretending to just hold it to your first chair, like he's a rapist. Can you
We
believe
know the
this?
truth. I wonder if other people would get it.
Right.
What's going on with this is just weird to me. New York City's mayor, Adams. What's his first name?
Eric.
Eric Adams. Eric Adams. So Eric Adams, what's going on where you're indicted, but we don't know why, and you're saying you're innocent, but you won't say what it is? What the fuck did you do in New York City? Is it those garbage cans that you made that can take pizza boxes, as if we're eating giant boxes of pizza in the fucking middle of the park?
Well, it has been a while since I've done this one, but um, I came to New York trying to save the city from itself, and it turns out I had too much swagger, and I think I've been charged with felony swagger.
Do you know what it is? I guess it's misusing
It,
campaign funds again.
yeah, I think that's it. And the truth is, not to put my very amateurish, barely professional legal hat on,
Right.
but these corruption cases, I think, have given courts a lot of problems recently because the Supreme Court has been very, there's no other way to say it, pro corruption
Uh-huh.
in terms of like, you've got to be so explicit about the quid pro quo that it almost feels very difficult to prove corruption and have that chart. Like to a common person, it seems like, yeah, sure, we know what happened. Robert Menendez, you had a bunch of gold bars given to you, and all of a sudden your wife had a job and you signed off on something,
Right.
whatever the case may be. But the way the court laid it out, it's got to be really like, hey, if if you make sure that we get that contract, I'll give you a suitcase with $50,000. It's got to be like very
Right.
explicit because there's sort of this acknowledgement that politics is a little shady, a little dirty, and the workings of politics. Like they said something about like politicians can accept gratuities but not bribes. And I'm
Oh,
like, so if Eric Adams like got a free flight on Turkish Airways and they were like, for a job well done, it's like,
right.
is that a gratuity? Is it
And
without
this
knowing
is
the specifics of like how it applies to a mayor and like,
right.
et cetera?
And this is
It's
why Trump is saying we don't want to tax gratuities.
oh no, and then you're gonna see, of course, you're gonna see like investment bankers and hedge fund people being like, I make $12 an hour, but at the end of the year, I was given a $44 million bonus,
Right.
which is a tip in the corporate world. So I
Right.
will not be paying taxes. Thank you. Except on my 12.50 an hour, you can have the $700 taxes
Right.
from my salary.
Your,
Um,
by the way, your Eric Adams is very good. In fact, this is a quote. I always knew that if I stood my ground for New Yorkers, that I would be a target, and a target I became. That makes no fucking sense. Those aren't words.
Yeah, but that is how you have to think of yourself, which is to say, New York, that is a Trump line of thinking, which is they're
It
only
is.
coming after me because I represent you, New York. Um, which is kind of that's the Trump thing. It's like
Yeah.
they didn't come after me because I raped a woman in a store.
Right.
They came after me because they hate you and I'm in the way.
I'm trying
Oh,
to make
really?
life better. They hate it.
It wasn't the rape? It was us. It was us
What did
living
I
our
do?
lives that they really hate and they're using you. Wow. How shameful of them.
Is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. around?
He is. He was
Uh,
just sexting a journalist, but I think he can come in.
I just saw so we talked the other day about Olivia Nuzzi and RFK Jr. having another affair fairly recently. His wife being the woman from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Boom, boom,
Now
boom.
now
Sorry.
Keith Olbermann has talked about Olivia Nuzzi because they used to date, so it's in the news. So he does a little talking
Oh,
about it. Just shut your fucking mouth, Keith Olbermann.
she's really spreading the newsy.
Hello. Can you imagine that's your job and your name? He was 55 years old. She was 21. That right there is fucking disgusting.
I
I look
agree.
at him sideways now. I liked him enough.
Yeah, I don't like that. I remember when I went like back to college as a 26-year-old and I was like, look at all these girls. I'm
Yes,
out in the world with women and I was perfectly in the right age range to date a 21 or 22-year-old. And I was like,
right.
they look so young. Like to me, I'm always like, I like age appropriate. I don't know what it is.
I was
And I've
late.
always liked it.
I was in New York City. I was late 20s, and there was like a 19, maybe going on 20-year-old hostess, and I was a waiter. And she was kind of flirting with me and model type looking. And I'm like, this conversation is so dumb. And it's not necessarily the way you were born. It's your age, and this is
Right.
ridiculous. You're a predator of some kind, Keith Olbermann. There, I said it. It's
There you
strange.
go.
It's strange.
Well,
We
what
had
about
do-
RFK Jr.?
we'll get to him. We had dogs and tattoos and rings, said Keith Olbermann. And like our relationships, it was very nice at the start. Then things happened and we worked on it and it ended. What? They dated for 3.5 years. Let's see here. I would spend every Christmas with her parents. So I guess 3 Christmases. Often getting coffee with her dad. Yeah, because that's the only one you can talk to.
Was
And
he older than her dad?
right, I don't know that. They should say that. You're right. He would spend every Christmas with her parents, often getting coffee with her dad. And Newsy even had a closet at his place, he said. They also have a dog, Stevie, together. And Oberman credits Newsy with awakening his lifelong love of dogs. Yeah, these sweet, innocent young people can introduce you to candy and dogs. That's fantastic. So that's weird. And then, of course, it's weird. RFK, uh, fucking her. What is with RFK? Let me ask you this. What is the deal with your fucking diaries? You don't need to write down everybody you fuck in these diaries. That's how you keep getting caught. Your first wife kills herself because she found out in your diary you slept with 30 to 40 women behind her back. Why is it so fucking important to write it down?
Well, it's part of my recovery from when I was in Narcotics Anonymous. They said to journal, and I thought, it would really stop me from using drugs if I
Right?
could turn my journal into a drug. And I actually tend to masturbate to my journal because it's like a trip down memory lane of all the affairs that I've had. So, it's sort of like erotica posing as a journal. And then occasionally I'll write down any animals that I slaughtered as well if I need extra turn on.
I've never seen RFK give some kind of speech on the top of the steps of some congressional whatever the fuck. And the first time I don't really follow politics necessarily, and he starts talking, and I'm like, no, stop wasting your family's money, stop wasting your wife's time. There's no fucking way.
And I growing up with an Irish Catholic mother of the right generation, the Kennedy name is revered, even though she can acknowledge she's read so many biographies. She makes excuses. She doesn't deny the bad conduct, but that Joe Kennedy was sort of the patriarch and he was a mean-spirited playboy, and then the mom was like an obscenely strict Catholic who I guess, didn't like some things, but looked the other way for her
Right,
husband being a man of the times. But of all the bad things they've done, they inspired a lot of people in the macro sense, which is worth something for sure. And they did good things in Congress when it comes to Teddy, but they
right.
all seem to do bad things too. And the ones who didn't died tragically, like John Jr. Nobody had a bad word to say about him, and he perished young in his prime. But
Right.
Bobby Kennedy Jr. Feels like the weirdest of all, like that he has staked his claim to stand out in this American royalty family as the weirdest.
Yeah.
Um,
And
it's
and Cheryl Hines said herself, she's like, quite frankly, and now looking back, I don't think she's joking. I'm attracted that he's a Kennedy. But the thing is, Kennedys can talk. They were inspiring. That's the point.
right.
What the, I don't know why.
Yeah, and it's like being a Kennedy in name, but having a really broken up. Obviously, it's a health issue, but still, that doesn't change the fact that that's a
It's
very
happening.
difficult voice to listen to.
Yeah.
I assume every woman he's with in bed is like, shh, say less. Um,
Right.
but he's also kind of like a Rogan. He's like this weird alternative
Yeah.
medicine, don't vaccinate, like I'm on testosterone supplements, like this weird sort of, for some reason all the gym bros they admire the fact that he can do push-ups and pull-ups at 69, but they don't question him wearing blue jeans to work out, which was usually a cardinal sin in
Of
any
course.
real gym. um but yeah, I mean, he just it's such a weird way for the Kennedy name to be sort of like, I don't want to say finished off. There's plenty more Kennedys of varying levels of charisma
Sure.
and talent, but what a weird, what a Godfather 3
Mhm.
of Kennedys.
That's a good point. Yes. Yes. Uh,
It's like JFK, Godfather 1, Bobby, Godfather 2. And that's skipping over Teddy, who maybe it would have been funny to call him Godfather 3, but he really wasn't. He's Apocalypse Now if we just make it
yes.
like Coppola films. And then Godfather 3 shows up and it's Bobby Kennedy Jr. Just what is going on here?
Right. Are they going to stay together? Or him and Cheryl Hines? Is it like, hey,
to, to,
things have been so crazy up to now. Who gives a fuck?
to be fair, if I can get real a second, I think even if she's understood his vaccine, like a lot of his kookiness has been out there when they were together. So
Right.
she's known that. But I feel like this is the kind of relationship where maybe in a moment of sympathy, this could be very taxing on her in a way that maybe if he didn't run for president, their relationship would not have hit these like crazy, weirder moments because she stayed with him after he, she's Jewish and he compared like Fauci
Right.
to like Hitler or something. He
Yeah.
was made or like them to like the anti-vaxxers to like Anne Frank or some. He made some
Yeah. And
very
I,
inappropriate
I
comparison, and
remember
she spoke up on that.
I remember that
So
and spoke up on
yeah,
social media where I'm like, well, that can't be good for the household.
but if they made it through that, then
Right.
I assume they will weather this too. But the truth is, if you've got these skeletons and your wife has already put like I wouldn't put my girlfriend through another 2020 as far as like the stress on like it was a great time for me financially, but it was this hectic, really stressful time. And I was like, I don't think I'd want to be that hardcore into the stresses of an entertainment life again.
Right.
And that's me actually achieving something and being happy in some respects, but recognizing I want to be a more friendly, calm partner, like not stressed out to the point where I'm just like obsessing over things. And to me, a Bobby Kennedy Jr. should have said, you know what? She weathered the storm when I said those things about Fauci and the Nazis. She's dealt with a lot of attention and a lot of crazy things. I've said, as a good husband, I'm not going to win the presidency. Let me put aside the ego and
Right.
not do this. Not like for her being a good partner, like I can recognize my capacity and the mistakes I've made, and I'm going to be a good partner, not do that. And that's like he's not capable of that, I guess. And it's like for anybody listening who thinks like I was going nuts, it wasn't that. It was just like I was spending all my time complaining about comedy, doing comedy, stressed. It was not a pleasant.
Right.
I just wasn't, and it was self inflicted a lot of ways. Like I was choosing to be this way and to do all this work that maybe I should have passed on some of it because I was so desperate. Oh God, comedy is so fickle. I got to cash in everything I can. So pardon me, but for the next year, I'm going to do nothing but complain and make comedy and complain some more and be stressed and not sleep.
Right.
My whole point is like and that was just some comedy. But if you've put
Right.
your partner through the Bobby Kennedy experience 2017 to 2022, maybe you give her a break and say, you know what, let's just go vacation. Let's spend some of this Kennedy money. Let's go have fun.
Right.
And you can enjoy my virility because of my testosterone supplements.
Also, we only know Cheryl from a comedy TV show. Maybe
Yeah,
she's a bad person too. I don't know.
that's true. She could be.
I don't know. When it
Boom,
comes to
boom,
the
boom. Sorry.
when it comes to wow, you can do anything. When it comes to these voices, does
Best
AI?
air trombone guy,
That's pretty good.
best air tuba guy in the country. That's what they say.
Was does AI piss you off? Are you like, man, this was a skill, and now anybody's gonna be able to sound like anybody?
I'll tell you why I'm nervous for it is because before I would say, but who cares? Like it's cooler that a person can do these things, right? Like you'd think like, yeah, okay, the computer did it and that's amazing technology, but it's still cooler that a human just goes and does these things. And I would say that would be my safety blanket, except watching the culture of comedy change on TikTok, especially, where you'll see a funny bit and then you'll see four more videos doing the exact same thing. And I go, well,
Yeah.
now I don't know I only like the original one because I don't respect copying,
Right.
adapting, modifying,
Sure.
parodying. That's original, but you're just doing what they did. You're literally just taking their original idea, whoever was originally doing it. And this has become sort of accepted. This is kind of just the point is to get followers. The point is to get, it's not to be
It's
an
even
artist.
accepted that they're not even necessarily stealing the idea. They show the video and they just have a new face.
Oh,
Her
yeah.
face
Like,
going,
can you
that's
believe this?
crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, we saw it.
Right.
The kid's cute. It's not
Right.
yours.
And so if we've accepted that, I think we are going to accept, oh, I just want to laugh. I just want something to distract me. So if AI is making like Trump say funny things, I, I mean, I can watch JL also, or I can watch something else, but I don't have to because
Right.
I view this as equally, if not more funny. and I don't care about the source material. Like I don't need my comedy organic anymore. I can have GMO comedy is what, is almost like what
Hmm.
it will be, where it's like some people will say, I like to support real artists. And many other people will go, well, the point of the art to me is to make me laugh or to make me enjoy something. So if it's made in a lab, so to speak, I'll eat it anyway. I don't
Right.
care.
Right. Let's see. Alex Jones. I want to mention this real quick. Alex Jones appears to be weeks away from selling his InfoWars program and all his assets to compensate the victims.
No.
You're kidding me. No. He owes $1 billion to the Sandy Hook people that he accused of lying and making up that there was a shooting, supposedly to have a stronger gun control legislation. Like, what? Okay. And so he kept saying it's a lie. Courts keep saying, okay, stop saying that. He kept saying, eventually they go, now you got to go to court. He still denied it at first. Now he owes $1 billion. Now he admits he made it up, but it's too little, too late. The ruling would put Jones' trademarks, copyrighted materials, and websites on the auction block. Physical assets, I don't know what that means though. Physical, like his brain supplements. Physical assets, including InfoWars broadcasting equipment, will be sold in a December 10th auction. I hope everybody gets together and goes, we all promise we don't pay more than $100 for one single thing, right? Okay, good.
Oh, I see. I hate to think in content purposes, but I was like, man, if I could get an authentic InfoWars sign in my,
It's legal.
home
Right.
office.
Do you do a Alex Jones?
I don't. I mean, I think you just
He's
kind
really
of get
good.
here. You just sort of like it's almost like a generic.
Like I think I could. That I'm just giving you a generic,
I
like,
love
oh,
it.
I'm a constipated guy with a gravelly voice.
but I'm sure if I worked on it, yes. Like I could right now it's probably just very like that's a that's a store brand Alex Jones type that I'm
Did,
doing.
do friends ever say to you, hey, do me? And then you're like, no, this never turns out well.
Um, I will say this. I think in college, I was able to impersonate most of my teammates and my coaches. And I think what I learned from that experience is everybody's laughing except one person.
Yes.
And then when you've impersonated like 8 people, they all have a reason to be annoyed with you, even though you just think, I'm killing every time.
Right. Could we do a speed round? And
Sure.
okay,
I hope I do all right.
these are I want to know these people's thoughts on any of the topics that we covered so far. Okay. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's start with the classics.
Oh, that's so old. I haven't done this in a lot of years, but the point when you're talking about a guy like Donald Trump, you're talking about a son of a bitch who doesn't love this country. It's been so. I'm sorry.
I
It's
like
been
it.
so long.
This is like when Henda would sing, and then it's like, oh, that's not that good. I'm like, well, that's insulting to me because that's fucking great what you just mumbled out of your mouth.
Get
Uh,
over there.
Speaking of Godfathers, Robert De Niro. The face does it.
Alex, see, it's more the face. I think. God, did you just dig up like my first album and you're like, do the ones on this because these are ones like a little bit like because then I have to just turn into a hack, which I hate, and I'll just start going a little bit, and I'm
Owen
like, oh
Wilson.
God. What other topics did we talk about today? That's a little one. It's a little easier to get into. I got on Keith and the girl. There was no girl. I was like, where is she, man? Like, this is what they're talking about in the right wing. Like, we're making children disappear. There's girls being trafficked, man. All right,
She was.
that one I can stand by, I think.
She did visit Thailand and shit. Nicolas Cage.
You are going down the
Yes,
first
please.
That's you just sort of get into a nasally space and you sort of shout randomly and I'm Wesley Goods. What was it, Stanley Goodspeed? Of
That's
course
right.
you are, dear.
I see
there's The
him.
Rock.
You do that thing just with your mouth. You make his mouth, and I see him. That is fucking crazy. Uh, do does your girlfriend ever ask for a celebrity in bed?
No, she
Okay.
doesn't even ask for me in bed.
Okay. The great Barack Obama.
Uh, as the first biracial president, I can say that my good friend Kamala Harris is in fact half black. Thank you.
Let's do some comics. George Lopez.
See that's a. I mean,
Is
I
that
just
more
have to admit
physical? You have to take your eyes out.
exactly some of these impressions. You know, I was going to the store the other day, and this white lady came out, and she said to me, "Excuse me, Mexican man," and I said, "Are you talking to me, Amber?" And it's like that is a bug the eyes out and get a
Yeah.
raspy voice, and I said, "You better get out of my face, white bitch," and she ran away, and it was the funniest thing.
He's
But
always
where are my
surprised.
Latinos at? Where are my Latinos at? I'm going to say that 20 times this set.
He's always surprised what comes out of his mouth. He's
Oh, every punchline. He sells the punchline like a WWF wrestler sells a move. And then I walked into the bodega. They said, "You better get the fuck." It was a white guy behind the desk.
R.I.P. Robin Williams. What's it like in heaven?
I don't really do a Robin Williams. I do.
Boom! I
Like
found
it's,
one.
well, it's just like, "Oh, hell no," like you just like that's like the generic like,
Right.
"Oh," and then I said, "Oh," and then John Wayne, "Come over here, partner." Look, and then I was in Aladdin and granting wishes, and I was going to I was coming out of the land. "Oh yes, can I come out of the land, please? Thank you." Good morning, Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh Trail sounds like Wizard of Oz. Yeah, the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The Ho Chi Minh Trail. Oh, and what's that? We got another dead soldier in Vietnam. Oh no! Blah, blah, blah.
Are
Yeah.
you working on anybody new?
New? No. I mean, I don't. New is like one of those things where it's like, is anybody big and like who's in the culture that's big enough? You know,
Right.
obviously Trump is the biggest thing, but like I'm always looking for somebody to just sort of be on my TV enough where I go, okay, they're both relevant enough and I'm getting enough exposure. So impressions, they can come in bunches. And then there can be these droughts where
Right.
I'm like, I'm just leaning on the ones I have and waiting for the next thing to pop up that I go, I think I could do that one. So
Who's your
right now,
favorite?
nothing. My favorite. Um, One that was very divisive that I was very proud of was I was doing new Chappelle, like older, thoughtful spoken word show, Dave
Mm-hmm.
Chappelle. Because and also I've been doing a Cornell West on my podcast, which is more now, but now you see we're on the Keith and the Girls show, but you have to remember now do we have to keep we have to look out for the girls and the women. We have to look out for the women as well because right now what they're doing, the neo-fascists, the neoliberals, and Neo from the Matrix, is they're not looking after our women. They're not looking after our women. So the but the enjoying because some people thought it was great. And a lot of people just wanted the, "Hey man, I'm Dave Chappelle." And I'm like, "Have you
Right.
not heard him recently? It's very smoky. It's very thoughtful. And let me tell you something. I don't like the trans.
He doesn't.
Okay. I don't have you live your life how you want, but if you get on the basketball court, I'm going to elbow you right in your dick. And that's going to prove that you, in fact, are a man. You're a man."
It's a shame all the people you do can be assholes. Oh well. Oh man, I love you. I could talk to you forever, but I have to go and get laid. Let people
Sure.
know they do want to get the last stand-up album as well as the other ones. The new one, of course, is called Half-Blackface. You
Yes, and if I
can
can make my one pitch,
please.
is that the special for Half-Blackface, which I'm extremely proud of, is streaming free on Amazon Prime, or if you're an international person, Tubi, or not to be, Amazon Prime.
Hmm.
I just turned into Mike Kaplan for a quick second there. You can watch it on Tubi, or you can choose to be not on Tubi. You can go to Amazon Prime. Either way, please watch it. And if you don't watch it, I would appreciate you listening to it. Even if you're watching the special, if you're vision impaired, you can also listen to it and not get the album because everything is sort of an album to you.
I was
Anyway, I
I
have to
was
go.
hearing I was hearing him on a recent Keith and Girl episode. And an hour goes by, and I'm like, I don't think he finished the sentence, like for real. I know the points he made, but
My friend, when Mike vanquished me in the final four of a Caroline's March Madness, my friend
right.
has forever referred to him as the machine gun of comedy.
He really
And
is.
I was apparently Sonny in The Godfather during
Right,
that round.
right.
But the special Half-Blackface is free on Amazon Prime or Tubi. And the album, which is a different set, and if I'm just being honest, the set
Yes,
that comprises the album is the single best set of my life. It was like magical that
it's
night.
great.
That album, I did not own all of it for a year, and now I have full ownership over that album. So I'm always telling people there's lots of ways you can watch my stuff for free. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, my podcasts are free. But other than like cameos or Patreon, if anybody just were like, I liked him, I'd like to hear his stuff, buying Half-Blackface, like the album on Amazon, you can stream it, you can download it if money's a thing. But if you ever want to just sort of like, how do I support this guy? The one thing I would tell people is buy the version of Half-Blackface that's now on, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon, MP3. If not,
Sure.
I just would encourage people just follow me on the various free things, and that's important too.
And you say if not, but you know what? How about if? How about if? Okay, he's fantastic. How about
Well,
if?
thank you.
Okay. If you want to hear the other time that this is like 10 years ago. It's ridiculous. But that J-L was on. It's episode 1861 called First Impressions. You're going to dig that a lot. What else can I tell you? KeithandTheGirl.com/VIP. Gets you every show we ever did. The spin-off shows. Nuzzi's off this week because I'm going to Charlotte, but we'll be back next week, of course. I should be back on Tuesday. And the YouTube channel for Keith and the Girl has the full 24-hour Keith and the Girl marathon from the beginning of this year. Over 50 of your favorite comics, et cetera, et cetera. All right. JL, thanks again, man. This was a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Really good catching up.